This is the Tapped In Podcast, the podcast for beverage distributors that want to empower their sales team to drive business results. Listen up and welcome back to another episode of the Tapped In Sales Podcast, your podcast for beer distributors by beer distributors. I'm your hostess with the mostest, Bud, here with Moneyball Ross and Data Mike. We are back again this week with a little bit of story time. This comes from something that's popped up to Ross a couple times, and I thought it might make sense for us to riff on it, and that is, who covers the route? And, do you have a new term out there to me as route jumpers? Do you have relief people? Do you have a team lead covering the route? And I think, Ross, specifically, you've noticed some really interesting behaviors around results at a route level over long-term leave. So I think we're going to start with more of the long-term leave. Think medical, think maternity, think, is it FMLA? Is that right? Is that what it's called too? Where Family Medical Leave Act, where you can take some time off legally. So that, I think, Ross, is where you wanted to start with the story time and the conversation.
Yeah, I think the best place to start is how this came to my attention and, essentially why we ended up talking about it today. So one of the things that we do with VXP is heavily influenced by goal setting. The tools that we provide to do so, how we look at it, how we engage our clients monthly around the idea of goal setting. Because very often it's, Johnny was out this month and we just had a merchandiser covering the route. Okay, cool. Now we understand why this route was down 25% versus goal. And we move on because we don't need to adjust our goals for next month because this isn't a continuing thing. It's just a 1 month situation where there was bad performance. Or it was Johnny wasn't here and we had a team leader kind of in and out covering it, just basically bare minimum covering it. What's also interesting is sometimes the opposite. When somebody's on the far end on the positive side, sometimes it was the team leader that was stepping in there too, that the team leader was so good they actually pushed the performance higher. But depends on, what the level of connectivity around that route is and how it's being covered. Another one could be, Johnny's going through a divorce. He's just not doing well. Well, okay, Johnny's going through a divorce. We understand that that's a lot of pressure personally, and that can affect your work. Explained, we move on. Again, there's a variety of reasons why individuals are not available to cover their routes. And very often than not, it's a haphazardly way in which the route is covered that results in the 20 to 25% down versus goal. In a very large client, I can think of one meeting where it was 2 or 3 routes that were this way. So you've got 2 or 3 routes down 25%. And again, what got me thinking about this conversation was we just said, okay, understood, and moved on. And then I think about having 3 major routes, and these were big routes, down that much, and how much it impacted the overall company for the month. And could it have been avoided? So that was the starting point for this conversation. I don't have an agenda beyond that. I think that's where we need to discuss. I think I would love to hear what Mikey has to say about this. But I think that's our starting point, which is, wait a second, we're just cool with the fact that we have 3 routes down 25%. Should we be cool with that?
No. I don't think we should be cool with it. It's funny when you're telling those stories of, who's covering who and who's on the route. My mind automatically went to relief route versus team leader on the route.
Yeah.
Right. And I think back because I was our team leader and I covered routes. And when I first started covering routes, I wanted to do exactly what the sales rep did. Right. It's like I'm following their history. I'm looking at everything that I could. And I'm trying to just make sure that the route remained consistent. Then you get somebody like Tommy out there. He would join me sometimes, and we'd go, oh, let's go sell this account together. And I order 2. Tom's like, no, make it 4. And I get to the next one and I order 10. He's like, no, let's make it 20. I'm like, wait a minute, dude. He's like, no, well, we got to bump these inventories up. So the different perspectives, the different mindsets, and then eventually it got to the point where I'm like, I'm looking through history and I'm trying to nail it right. And then the rep would come back and then go, dude, did you sell any beer last week? I'm like, wait a minute, man. I did exactly what you've been doing. And then the exact same thing with a different route where they would come back and they go, my God, dude, my accounts are like busting at the seams. What did you do? So a little bit of a perspective from, somebody doing it and being out there to where it's like, all right, so the people that we have covering these routes and those routes that are down 25%, is it just lack of understanding and lack of knowledge, or is it the hesitation of, I don't want to oversell these accounts, right? And I don't want the rep to come back from the long period or a short period to accounts that are jam-packed, and then now they're going to miss their goal because there was so much inventory out there.
What the difference is to me is there's a little bit of like incentive mismatch around, we're rotating product, we're managing inventory, we have to keep retailers happy. And if you're a rep and you're running a route day in and day out, you understand the complexity of managing at an inventory level back and forth across all the different type of accounts that you have at any given time. And I know that there is a philosophy around amount of touches that I have to make. And if I keep the inventory at the right level as a rep day in and day out, I can limit my touches and limit the amount of rotation that I need to do. And some reps care about that a lot. Some reps don't care about it a lot. It goes back and forth. It kind of depends on the route makeup and route structure. When you come as a route cover person, it's like, do I want to disrupt that? Do I know? Should I be doing this? What's my par levels? Sometimes there aren't par levels set, or sometimes they haven't communicated par levels, even though that's probably one of the more, it sounds lame and it's really simple, but it actually works pretty well in our industry for par levels and at the retail side. So I wonder, Mikey, how much it is based around, any one rep, Kenny, Jared, Billy, Jimmy, Johnny, Susie, Kathy knows, like, okay, this is the amount of inventory for this package this account typically needs, and they're kind of working around that number regularly. And then the relief person, if they're scared or timid, they're going to keep it light. If they're like you or Tommy, they're just say, hey, like, heavy them up.
Yeah,
this is clearly enough.
There's also, there's the factor of selling versus coasting in there too, right? And if you think, hey, I'm throwing a team lead, I'm throwing a manager, I'm throwing somebody that's really experienced with selling on this route, what are they going to do? They're going to sell. They're going to spot opportunities. They're going to capture them. They're going to take advantage of every opportunity that's out there. Typically, our relief reps are reps in training, right? They're the next level to come up. And they're not as well versed on the selling side, spotting opportunities, seeing a display space, selling it in, or whatever it may be. And their primary focus is, I need to get through this day in a timely fashion. I need to survive without getting my ass chewed. And I want to make sure that I'm doing right by the rep that I'm covering for, right? So I think there's that aspect too of, I don't think, undersold it on purpose. I was trying to do right, but I also didn't capture any opportunities when I was out there.
We're probably not misappropriating. We're probably miscalculating, Mikey, that attitude around, or the time. If you know the route really well, all the little things that you can get done more efficiently and quickly. The flow of the chain account, where all the packages are, where they are in the back. You were the last one to structure the inventory in the back. So, front facing, pulling inventory, doing the merchandising is really quick. You add all those things up as a relief route that doesn't know where the accounts are, doesn't know where the product is in the accounts, doesn't know how the account's organized. They maybe haven't been in the account in a month or maybe even longer. All of those little things add up to the time clock pressure of that. We still have an order cutoff time to hit.
Yeah.
At some point in time, there's going to be an order cutoff time. And there's probably not enough grace, Ross, given to some of the relief reps that are just relief reps or merchandisers stepping up to cover. They just don't know as much as they need to know. So that slows them down, and that slowdown then aids in some of the mistakes and opportunities that happen then too.
That time crunch is serious too. I mean, I remember when I first started running routes, and even towards the end of running routes, I had two responsibilities. I needed to cover that route for the day, and I also had my own job to do. So at the end of the day, if I had any loose ends at the office, I needed to tie up. I needed to get those done. So I always remember when I would cover a route and, hey, ask for their daily plan and open times, all that stuff, right? That's typically like in the route structure. I would also ask, what time do you normally get done on that day? What time do you normally get done on this day? So that I could plan my day like, all right, cool. If they normally get done, say it's 2-3 o'clock, I'll be back to the office about 3:30, 4 o'clock. And that never happened. If their normal end time was say 3 o'clock, I was getting done at like 6:30. And I felt like I was hustling, but you're exactly right. You're standing at a large format store and that rep can go boom, boom, boom. Nope. I see that right there. Yep. There's shelf is full. That's all they need. They're good. Where a relief rep is standing and walking the aisle, looking for that package, finding that package, digging through all the history. All right. There's only, there's a case and a half on the shelf. Is that good? Have they ever got that low? When's the last time they ordered it? Right? All that time adds up so much. So then, yeah, you're exactly right. There's that pressure, that time pressure too, of like, I just need to survive this day or this week or this month or however long that is.
Ross, did you notice anything that was like a type of person that was pushing the goal down or pushing the goal up between the two? Team leads were doing better, merchandisers were doing worse, relief reps were middle of the road or on trend. Did you notice any genuine difference in the type of person covering it all?
Again, I think my goal coming in today was I'm just going to lay out the observations and allow Wes to kind of dial it in from there, right? So I think where you're leading us here is to a place where the word that comes to mind is training. Because again, there's other scenarios here that I can think of that we've talked about. So to your point, Mike, sometimes a team leader covering the route results in outsized positive outcome. But then again, you have to ask the question, is that the right use of that resource? We can get into that here in a second. But I thought other interesting ones is sometimes we'll look at it and say, oh, damn, it's down 25%. What's going on? Oh, our really great guy got moved to a different route or left the company, and this is a new person in the role. And vice versa, I've seen the other, which is Johnny finally retired, found out Johnny was kind of dragging there at the end because the new person that came in the route's killing it, plus 25. And they're like, well, what's going on this route? Oh, Annie jumped into the route. Annie's been dying to get on, promoted into a route. She's finally a route. She's killing it. She's murdering it, finding opportunities we've never seen before, just destroying it. So what's the difference between who goes into the route, right? So I think that has a lot to do with training. Training is the word that comes to mind, right? I think we need to step back and say, how do we optimally deal with departures? How do we deal with temporary departures? And the optimal way to cover these things. But the thread that connects it all to me is training and availability of individuals, like, and how we think about it. Are we doing it, are we managing the crisis or do we have a plan to deal with this?
Have we noticed anybody or a best practice around structure of reliefs? Are we seeing people that are doing better with a consistent relief person? Are we seeing people that are doing better with team leads? Are we seeing people that are doing better giving that shot to the merchandiser from time to time, bumping that person up for a short term? Notice any like structural opinions so far?
Yeah, I think and again, it goes back to the conversations we had with Wes. Yeah, that you basically have a hierarchy of sales rep, and then you kind of just bump them up the line. So you've got the Annie in the wings, waiting to go into a route. Maybe today she's covering a a merchandiser plus route. We've taken those non-impact accounts, we've segregated them off and created basically a sales rep and training. Not a merchandiser, not yet a sales rep, but somebody in between. That person moves up to cover the sales route. Merchandiser comes in behind to cover that route, so that you're not losing sight or not using that critical route. That's a large format, high impact route. You don't want to just leap over better people, Annie, waiting to become a sales rep and jump into that with a really crappy merchandiser. It's never going to be a rep anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the right solution. Or is it taking a team leader who doesn't have the time to do it, who should be training the next round of sales reps to cover that route, kind of as a shit, why am I having to do this? Or I'm going in there doing a great job, but at what expense?
Mm-hmm. And typically I guess to answer your question, Bud, the best case scenario, and it depends on resources too, right? How large you are, how large your staff is. Can you afford to have dedicated relief reps?
Yeah.
And those that do have dedicated relief reps, that is their job. They're relieving reps. And there's going to be times that people are not gone. So what does that person do? Some help out in the sign shop, some help get caught up. The best ones are the ones that are out there using that time, still working with reps. They're always on a route, right? There is no downtime. Cool. We don't have a route to cover this week. You're riding with Bobby, right? You and Bobby are going to team sell all week. Bobby's super strong. Not only can you get in there and do the order, open up some time for Bobby to do some selling, maybe straighten up the account, but you're also learning, because if this is our next generation that's coming up, they need to be top notch. Day one of having your own route, they need to be the ones that we see on the goal sheet. Why is this route up 12, 15%? Oh, he's new on the route. And it's great. It was great relief rep. And the last rep just wasn't taking advantage of any opportunities. So seeing that would probably be the best case scenario. Is that going to translate to every single company out there? No, because sometimes we just don't have those resources. We don't have the luxury of having those extra bodies to be able to fill in.
No, I think Mike did a good job of spelling it out, because it brings back to the word I said, which is training.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a couple of ways you can handle that, right? You can have a dedicated role that's a relief person that is a very heavy training regimen. Maybe they're riding along with some team leaders in those days that they're not covering, right? Because it's part of their training session. You have things that they're supposed to be doing on days when they're not covering. That's part of their education. You're investing in you're investing in that Annie, right? And then the other one I described is a scenario, because you asked about have I seen other customers that done things, and I like the idea too of just bumping everybody up the line. That would be part of it. You've already got a pool of reps that are in training, and as part of it being in training, they're covering these non-impact accounts, right? They're not yet a full rep, but they're not a merchandiser anymore. So I think that those are different shades of strategies around good training programs that prevent these tail fall offs. And I think you asked the right question, Mike. And I think it depends on the size of the organization. And even in a smaller organization, I just don't know if you can afford not to do something like this.
The bigger the team is, you feel like you get more flexibility, but you also, the smaller the team is, probably have a larger impact on the training side, is what you're getting at, Ross, is that every incremental case that you sell is going to be more and more important to you the smaller and smaller and smaller that you are. So taking advantage of every opportunity is really important.
Again, it was an epiphany to me, because I saw it across the entire spectrum of clients from small to large, that it was a very small minority of our customers that had a very strong process and system to address this. The vast majority were like, that's just what happens in our business. We're stretched to the max, and we're barely covering something when somebody's out.
Yeah.
And we're getting these poor results, and let's move on. So that's what really, again, triggered this conversation, which is, it wasn't specific to large or small. It was across the spectrum of it just being something that it's like a bad rainstorm came. That sucks. Okay, maybe we should buy some umbrellas. I don't know.
What are you willing to, your culture is what you're willing to tolerate. And, that what you're willing to tolerate plays out sometimes in little weird ways like this. Mikey, the piece that we haven't really touched on too is that even if you have a relief person, and a full blown relief person, the team lead still plays a role in this, or the director still plays a role in this somehow too. Because the thing that I really like is getting second sets of eyes. There's a rhythm and a pace to how we go about doing our business as a sales reps, and we can fall into ruts over that in our world. We can continue to do the same thing over and over again, accidentally not getting ourselves out, not challenging ourselves, or just, saying, hey, like, this account is tough. The owner doesn't want to work with me. I'm just going to put it in management or maintenance mode and focus elsewhere, where there are still nudges and opportunities you can take. So I think a good team lead plays a really important role to get a second set of eyes and make sure that they're nudging and jostling the rep out of any ruts they might be in on a regular basis.
Yeah, I think we did an episode on that.
We probably did, but it's probably a good time to talk about it too.
No, for sure. Yeah. And there's nothing like opening your eyes to a rep that has fallen into those ruts, like seeing a relief rep on that same exact route come out with different results.
Yeah.
That's when it really opens up your eyes and you're like, all right, well, maybe I need to take a deeper dive in here. What is going on? Because those ruts are not always going to be identified with a ride along once a month or once a week. You really need to spot those patterns. And sometimes those patterns are in the results, right? It's in what we talked about on the last episode. It's in the look. It's in the look of, do your accounts look like you're the leader? Are you putting up the results on the scoreboard for objectives and incentives, right? Am I walking into all of your accounts and spotting the same opportunities over and over and over again? And once you identify that they're in the rut, then that's when you can really start to take some action plans as far as coaching goes. But it's not always easy to spot, but you have to really be vigilant and you have to look for, all right, are we getting caught up in the same old day-to-day? Are we walking in the account, saying hi, taking the order, telling the case total, walking out, telling them have a good day every single week?
Yeah, I think the subtext of that is outliers are a call to action, right? We can just look at it and say, cool, and move on. Or we can look at it and say, what did we do right? What did we do wrong?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So if we have... Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Go ahead. I'll follow up when you're done. I was going to say, I hear a lot of times during goal settings when we identify those outliers. And sometimes they're consistent outliers. And I hear the most is, well, that area, that part of the market, that city is just really struggling lately. But what I want to ask is, have you been out there? Have you been in those accounts? Have you, shadowed for a whole, are there all the opportunities? Are they captured? Is there really a push on that route? Or are you just making excuses saying, yeah, that area's been struggling because we're just looking at the numbers? What is the underlying issue, right?
I think that's yeah.
Willing to ask questions is what I hear you two saying over and over again, rather than accept status quo.
Mm-hmm.
Call to action.
Yeah, call to action.
Yep.
So what does that call to action look like? Like, when you see it, what's the best practice? Sounds like, Mikey, get out in the market, see some people, see, hold hands, kiss babies, spin beer bottles, look at the leader, right? I mean, sometimes it's like management by walking around, right? It's like as simple as it can be. It's just getting out and wandering around and asking questions and seeing what people are doing.
Yeah. There's two different types of, I guess I wouldn't call it a failing rep, right? But a downward spiral or somebody that's not performing. There's two different types. There's one that is knowingly just not performing because they don't feel like it. Maybe they're not incentivized enough. Maybe they, just don't really care anymore. They're on the way out the door. They're getting close to retirement, or they just don't have the motivation. And then there's the other one that just simply is not noticing it, right? Simply unknowingly not performing like they should. And sometimes it only takes a few, coaching sessions or being out there and asking questions, not demanding, not reprimanding. Why is this like this? If I see this again, I'm writing you up. We talk about that over and over again. It's hey, why didn't you, just asking questions, why didn't you take advantage of this opportunity? Did you notice this? I walked in here, maybe it's something that just happened this week. Maybe we're this out of stock or competition took your space this week. And it's not a normal thing, but did you notice that, right? What did you do about it? Or why is there a price disadvantage on our package, and competition's a little bit heavier or a little bit lighter. So asking those questions and really getting the rep to think for themselves and, create their own solutions. And that's what you ultimately want them to do. You don't want to be out there every single day, every single week, telling them those opportunities and telling them the solutions. You want to get them to the point where they create their own solutions. But you need to be asking those questions to get them going.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's a good topic for people to kind of nudge. It's not something that owner operators focus on or look at every single day either. So I think it's fun for us to kind of bring it up and talk about it and shoot the shit about it and learn a bit more. If you've got strong opinions about this, would love to hear from anybody out there too on what's working, what's not, the relief world, all that good shit. Then
I think before we move on, I think we need to talk about the team leader side of it too.
Let's do it.
Because I don't feel good about that being the answer. Right, because I think Mike said, a team leader can cover it and do a great job and spot opportunities and see things in the route never seen before. But is that the best use of a team leader? And it's more of a question to the group here.
No, it's not. But I identify, Ross, with running a small wholesaler and a small team where that was the option. And, resources can be reallocated, but our option from our side, looking at the P&L, was that we had tried having really tried having a relief person, right, Mike, or an assistant salesperson, and it just was a lot of money with limited benefits at the back end of it when we chose to part ways with that project, because we did give it a run, if I remember right.
Yeah, I mean, it always sounds like the best case solution, right? Hey, I'm gonna put my best man on it, right, or my best lady on it. I'm gonna get the best person for that route to cover that while it's open, or waiting to fill that new position, or whatever it may be. It sounds great, and that person goes out there and absolutely crushes it, and you have that growth on that route for the period of time that the normal route was missing. But what we're not thinking about was what didn't get done during those 2 weeks, or that 1 week, or the 3 weeks, when we had a manager actually covering a route, right? So now, all right, cool, we grew that route by a little bit, but what was missed? How many coaching sessions, how many ride lists were missed? How many other important balls were dropped in the meantime when we took a important role out of the shoes, basically saying, your role is not important for the next 3 weeks. You don't need to do anything, right? Cover a sales route. So to answer your question, I don't think that is the best solution. But in some cases, it's the only solution.
So basically, we're saying is Bud screwed up.
Yeah, we needed why didn't you have us a dedicated? Let's go back to that.
It's not cheap.
There it is.
But that's the point I'm making, Bud. You can cheap your way into poor performance.
Mm-hmm.
And there's an expression there, like picking up pennies in front of a steamroller.
Well, you're picking up pennies to losing dollars along the way, or picking up pennies and dropping quarters along the way is always what I've
expressions that cover this one.
Yeah, what I've talked about. What I would stand behind is that we looked at it a ton, and we even tried the experiment to have it. And when push comes to shove, on our size of operation, which was small, we didn't have enough juice on the orange to be able to make it work for the way that it needed to work. If you get a little bigger, I do think it alleviates some of these pressures around what you're sacrificing in the short term. So what are you trading off? If we don't invest in a full-time relief person and you're small or medium, you're sacrificing team lead time and training time and investing in your team for relief, recovery, and coverage time. That's what you're trading out. And we're also trading out all the other hats, because distributor operators wear tons and tons of hats. And the smaller you are, the more hats you put on your head. And even big operators wear lots and lots of hats. I know that across the board. So, Mikey, when you were on the route, basically everything else we wanted you to do that was value add to the business stopped. Mm-hmm. And we had to be willing to tolerate that. That was the largest trade-off we had, Ross. Wasn't poor performance, wasn't different performance, because Mike did a good job at it. It was, what are we stop doing that is additional value added work that we needed to get done while he was covering for people. And we had a seasoned veteran crew too. Like it wasn't like it was 6 weeks a year. It was quite a lot a year. It was a decent amount of time over a year's time.
But I would challenge you, Bud, to think about it differently than I think the traditional way to think about it is having a relief rep, right? I think we tossed out a couple different options here of, again, we know, would we do things differently had we run our distributors today versus had we run them when we did run them? So it's, easy for us to judge our prior selves here. That, segmenting your accounts in impact and non-impact, and having one of the, the non-impact rep be the sales trainee that, you're not trying to figure out what to do over investing. You just slide everybody up the line to cover, right? So that you've got your next superstar rep sliding into the relief role from their non-impact account coverage, and then having the merchandiser cover just the order taking. Right. So I'm saying it may be part and parcel of a more creative way to think about this that allows a small wholesaler such as yourself to do this without, because I can sit there and say that economically having a full-time relief rep does probably not make any damn sense at the scale you were at. So I'm not surprised you failed with that as a concept. But I think there are other ways that I'm seeing clients manage this that are a little bit more creative and interesting. There might be better ways. And again, I don't have data to say that, hey, what I saw with this idea of sales trainees covering non-impact accounts sliding up is the best way to handle it, but it's a way to handle it that I thought was pretty creative and successful. At least they thought so, because they weren't having team leaders covering the routes.
And I think one of probably the most important takeaways from today is if you do have relief routes, don't treat them like second fiddles. Oh, they're just a relief route. They don't need this training, or they're just a relief route. They don't need this. And I do hear that quite often, even bringing people, brand new clients into VXP, where it's like, oh, we don't need them on VXP because they're just relief routes. Well, why don't you want to show them the same playbook that your reps have, right? And I think that the misconception there is, well, they're only filling in a route while the rep's gone, and not really thinking of, this is my next generation. I want to get them all the training, all the experience that I really can. So I think, and back to Ross's point, training. Why not?
Mm-hmm. Always train. Overtrain, always train. People always need it. They will always use it. You will always get more out of it. There's that great CEO, CFO fable back and forth. The CEO tells the CFO, we need to invest in training. The CFO says, that's really expensive. What happens if we train them up and they leave? And the CEO says, what happens if we don't train them and they stay?
Yeah. Great point.
So, how do we continue to reinvest, which is one of the reasons, Mike, why we are investing in, if you're a team lead out there listening to this and you're also a VXP client, hit up your senior leader and tell them that you are interested in joining the team lead mastermind group that we are starting as well, as a little announcement, because that is brand new for listeners. So you got to be a VXP client, do need to be a team lead, but you can be nominated to join that group. You can let your team lead or you as a team lead, you let your sales manager or owner know that you want to join it and have them nominate you. So that's a little fun tidbit for any of our listeners that are also clients out there in the world.
An elite group.
Yes.
So let me bring it back to that training point. I think this is critical because this is real dollars and cents, right? So if this is an economic calculation, if you've got 10 routes and 2 routes are down 25%, the rest are 100%, you are automatically down 5% for the month. 5% down for the month as a distributor for 2 of your routes. So your exposure, and then just do the math. You can do the math on what 5% represents to you.
Mm-hmm. On top of your trends already, which are probably down 5%.
Well, let's not even go there, Mikey.
I'm saying that's tacked on to where you're at. That's it.
Again, I'm assuming you're at 100% across the other routes.
We never did the math like that either, Ross. We always did the math based on how many people do we have? What does the vacation calendar say that we need to cover? And that dictated whether we invested in a relief person or not. And I do believe that a lot of people still do the math that way and don't think about it from the context of performance and results. They think about it in, if I've got 10 people, so use your 10 example, and I've got 4 people that are senior veteran reps that get 6 weeks of vacation, and I've got 3 people that are going to get 3 weeks of vacation, and I've got, the remainder that are getting 2 weeks of vacation. How many weeks of vacation is that across the whole team? That's how many weeks I have to cover. So, and then you add sick days in, that's how many days, net days I have to cover. Is that enough to justify a relief person or not to be on the route? So that's a way you're positioning that is a completely different vantage point to consider the economic results of sales versus the economics of just covering the bodies that you have to cover.
Yeah, and I would argue that this ties back to a lot of conversations we've had around sales versus operations. I can cut 5% of my expenditures, but if I increase my sales by 5%, those are very different numbers.
Mm-hmm.
But if I lose 5% of my sales, what's that worth? Right? And am I willing to tolerate it?
Yeah.
And I mean, me personally, again, the aha moment here was watching our customers just say, it's a cost of, don't worry about it. That's just, it is what it is. Wait a second. I don't, no. Being, losing, and I watched it with a client. They lost 2 or 3 percentage points for the month. They had slippage because of it.
Yeah.
And to me, it was like, oh shit. Well, if that's happening every single month, you're losing. You're leaving 3 or 4 points on the table.
How do we get out of that? And that is worth a lot more when you look at it that way compared to just look at it at weeks covered or days covered throughout the year. Mikey, I wonder how much Dave is Davey Dave. And for those listeners out there, Dave was our he was our merchandiser plus would be the way that you'd look at it. He was our sales rep that covered all our large format at our wholesaler. I wonder how much he rolls over in his grave over us calling those stores. But he is not dead. You're right.
Can't say that.
He's retired though. He is retired. So yeah. I wonder how much he's throws his hands up if he listens to this of like, these routes are impact. I had jump balls every day. And I bring this story up because, my joke is that I get these questions from owners all the time. It's like, well, 60% of our market is chain driven. How much impact do we really have? And my standard joke is you don't let your sales reps feed you that line of bullshit too, do you? And it always lands, except for the last time I told it. It did not land.
What they say.
It just didn't land. It kind of deadpanned it. It just kind of deadpanned it out. But every time that we talk about this, because then we pivoted to the sales manager, and the sales manager's like, well, yeah, there are some jump balls out there. But Dave would be just screaming at us right now, being like, are you kidding me? There's jump balls every day. If you know what you're doing, you know how to manage this, and you know how to take advantage of things. Like, nobody needs to follow. We talk about these mandates and that everything happens. Nobody needs to follow these mandates. I can massage these mandates as much as I want would be Dave's response. So maybe that should be something we should talk about at some point.
Well, but I don't think it's those two things can be true at the same time. A non-impact route is very important. It needs to be well covered. It needs to be managed by somebody that knows what they're doing. It's an important route, and there are jump balls. Same time is what I'm talking about is now you've listened to Wes Verno and you somehow bought into what he said. And now you've got these A+ routes that are heavy volume and super high impact. And you're just like, I'll cover them with whoever's laying around that can cover the route.
Great attitude. Yeah.
And yes, you're covering the non-impact routes the way they need to be. You put the right person into the right account, but that person just want to leave for a month. And you're just like, who's laying around here that can cover this shit? You just took all this time to figure out what your impact accounts were and say, I need my best player in this account. And you just let an entire month go by where your A+ route is covered by somebody that's just basically a merchandiser or somebody else that has another job to do and they don't want to be doing this. That's the point I'm making. It's not that the non-impact routes are not important. It's just that you took all this time to figure out what your impact accounts were and then just let it sit for a month and decay.
Yeah.
Let your competitors take shelf space. Let out of stocks happen that will never be recovered. You just let all this shit happen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Got a couple other things I want to cover. It was a good topic today to kind of go through. If hit us up if you got questions or you got concerns, you got things you want to hear about. You can get our email at the end for sure if you don't already have it. Diageo news, a couple things to finish up. Diageo rewires a distributor's. Diageo rewires a distributor playbook in their minds. I thought this was hilarious, and I almost think we should call them too, because this is
Call Diageo. I guess there's a person you can call.
I mean, he's named here, John O'Keefe.
Mr. Diageo?
John O'Keefe. Yeah, I think it's kind of funny. I really think it's funny because he, like, word for word at his distributor, not a distributor conference, but at, like, he was doing, I think it was North America or talking about Capital Markets Day. So they were doing like some publicly traded market bullshit where they're talking to their investors. He said the distributor sales teams have historically been pretty much focused on points of distribution, and going forward plans to rewire those organizations and their incentives towards rate of sale and velocity. His words, distribution plus rate of velocity is going to be a key unlock for us. It's like, duh. We put the product on the shelf.
Welcome to the future.
You can't push a rope, bro. Like you gotta.
Should you ask him if he knows what a U-boat is?
know what a U-boat is. It's like, come on, bro. Like
my first thought was exactly what your point was there, Bud. It's like, okay, well, how long have we just been pushing distribution everywhere, knowing we're paying people for just the placement? That's it, right? So we need the velocity. Well, that's where VXP comes in, side plug. But on the other edge of the coin, sounds like they're going to be flipping the way that they run their incentives to focus more on the velocity instead of just the points of distribution. So my thought is, how are we going to track that? We know we can track it, but like, how are they going to tie that to a program? I'm going to let this other supplier remain nameless. Listeners will know exactly who I'm talking about. But if you go back about 15 years ago, maybe more, there was another large supplier that ran a similar program to where it was basically a rate of sale, right? And you got points, or you got a green check or a red X if the tracked SKUs turned over in a set amount of time in each account. Basically, like one a week, one a month, depending on the velocity, right? Whatever the SKU was, but there were a set amount of SKUs that were tracked, and every account that was tracked around the program had to turn those. So I'm wondering how they're going to track that. How is it going to be fair, right? Because the right SKU for the right account makes all the difference. If it's the wrong SKU in that account, you're not going to turn it. Like you said, you're not going to push a rope. You're not going to take money out of people's wallets and make them purchase it. So how is that going to be tracked? Is there going to be some sense behind it?
The thing that keeps coming back over and over again, we are going to do an episode on this in the near future, is that how you get the placement matters much more than just getting the placement. And the how includes where, price point, shelf space. Is it the right amount of shelf space or the wrong amount of shelf space? All of those things matter. And it's a tesseract of a problem, to use a big word this morning, because I know it's still really early, rather than just a black and white of get the placement and move on. And if we treat our programs as get the placement and move on, what do we get? We get the placement and we move on. But if we treat it as a more sophisticated, elegant selling program or selling solution where we want to see the turn happen, we want to see the rate of sale happen, we want to see the velocity pick up, and we educate and incentivize the reps through that philosophy, then you will get that. That's the whole design of how these programs should be thought about and should be. So it's nice to see some folks coming over to the dark side and leaning into the next century of thinking rather than just placements for placement's sakes. But I thought this was hilarious.
Well, it's what we talk about. It's quality placements times turn.
Mm-hmm.
Because we talk about VXP it's velocity times profit. The key metric for the distributor themselves. But as a supplier, your metric is key placements times turns, right? I mean, that's your key metric. It's not placements in the absence of turn, and it's not turns in the absence of placements. Like, if you just come in there and say, hey, we need turns, great. but you need to be in the right accounts
At the right time.
Yeah, and you can trust there's some degree of like you're better off just letting the entrepreneurial spirit of the reps figure out what those right accounts are. But again, I think what what you're looking for is you're looking for quality distribution. The subtext of that is give me the quality distribution and where it'll turn.
And then Mikey, this week, anything else on this topic, boys?
No.
No. And
I mean, we could go on. We could make 3 episodes out of that last time.
I figured, we'll just save that for a future episode. So, and then last fun news, Mikey, you were in a wedding this weekend, and you were the beer. What do you call yourself? You were the ring bearer of beer, right?
Yeah. So I was the official ceremony beer. What does that mean? We had to keep the guests hydrated. It was a warm day, fun couple, good friends of ours, and amazing people. And so I had the privilege of being the ceremony beer, which is a perfect job for me, right? So yeah, I had a vest on that held 12 cold ones under my jacket.
Where do you buy such a vest? You look like you were showing up like as a terrorist, like a bomber.
As what?
Yeah, they got bomb vest.
No, it was fun. So wedding goes on as normal.
Beer vest, Ross.
Yeah, it's beer vest.
Where do you buy such a thing?
Amazon, bro.
Amazon.
But so wedding music's playing. Groom and his parents come down. I love the zoom out. You can see the beer flying through the air. And
look at that focus.
Isn't that great?
Look at that focus.
I know.
How
Zooming
far
on
did
the
you
vest,
throw that thing?
all the way to the outside edge.
Because you're leaning back on your back leg there. I don't like the form there.
You don't like the
form?
form? I had to get it up and over because I didn't want to take anybody out. I didn't want any guests to get hit upside the head. But yeah, groom comes down, seats the parents, nice, elegant music and everything. They're in position. And then the music cuts over to AC/DC Back in Black. And here I come with a vest full of 12 cold ones in a cooler and toss them out. So yeah, I had a couple long shots there. Had to go wide on the crowd.
How many beers did you hand out?
I think I handed out 20.
20? Or did you have more in the Yeti down here then too?
Yeah, so I had 12 on me, and then the rest were in there that I handed out.
Love it. Did the whole wedding party grab one too?
No, the wedding party wasn't even up there yet. They were still waiting to come down the aisle.
They're still waiting to come down the aisle. I love it. That's awesome. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
And beer occasions. We talk about all the time. We need more beer occasions. And that's just taking a special occasion and turning it into a beer occasion.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Well, another fun episode for the listeners out there. If you like what we're doing, continue to like, listen, subscribe, share with a friend. If you want to hit us up with any questions, comments, listener notes, hit us up at info@vxptech.com. That's info@vxptech.com. Boys, again, until next week, you guys rock, and everybody out there in listener land, cheers.
Cheers.